The cold New York rain hammered against the thick glass windows of the VIP room. Nneka stood perfectly still in the dark corner, holding a heavy silver tray against her chest. Her cheap waitress uniform scratched her skin. Her feet throbbed with a dull, angry pain. She had been standing for 6 hours straight. But physical pain was nothing compared to the massive, crushing weight of her dead father's debt. $400,000. That was what she owed to some very bad people. Just 2 years ago, she was a top lawyer. Now, she was a ghost, a nobody pouring drinks for rich men who thought they owned the world. She took a slow, quiet breath and looked at the men sitting around the massive oak table. On one side sat Marcus Vance and his partner, David. They were the exact corporate snakes who framed her father. They stole his company, ruined his good name, and drove him to a heart attack. Just looking at Marcus's smug, fat face made Nneka want to scream. She wanted to grab the heavy glass bottle of whiskey from her tray and smash it over his bald head. But she couldn't. If she made a scene, she would lose this job. If she lost this job, the loan sharks would find her and kill her. So she kept her mouth shut. She swallowed her anger and stepped closer to the table to pour more water. On the other side of the table sat Baek Do-hyun. He was the most dangerous man Nneka had ever seen. He didn't wear a flashy watch or smile like the corporate guys. He sat perfectly still, wearing a dark, custom suit that looked sharp enough to cut glass. His black hair was pushed back, and his dark eyes were cold and dead. He was a major boss in the Korean syndicate, and he controlled half the shipping ports on the East Coast. He brought a heavy, dark energy into the room. Even the air around him felt cold. Next to Do-hyun sat his translator, a nervous, sweaty little man named Park. Park kept pulling at his shirt collar. He looked like a rat caught in a trap. Do-hyun leaned forward and spoke in a low, rough voice. He spoke in Korean. "If the shipment is not in my warehouse by Friday night," Do-hyun said, his voice quiet but deadly, "I will not just cancel the deal. I will take 40% of your company as a penalty. No more delays." Nneka froze. She kept her head down, but her eyes went wide. She knew Korean. Her old college roommate was from Seoul, and Nneka had studied the language for 4 years to handle international law cases. She understood every single word Do-hyun just said. It was a clear, brutal threat. But Park, the nervous translator, did not say that. Park turned to Marcus Vance and forced a fake smile. "Mr. Baek says he understands the weather has caused delays," Park said in English. "He is happy to give you until next Wednesday to deliver the goods, and he will keep the original price. No penalties." Nneka's breath hitched in her throat. The translator was lying. He was changing the terms. He was selling Do-hyun out. Marcus and David shared a quick, greedy look. They were paying the translator off. They were setting up the Mafia boss, playing him for a total fool. Do-hyun noticed Nneka stop moving. His cold, dark eyes slowly shifted from the men at the table and locked onto her. He watched her shaking hands. He saw the shock on her face. Nneka felt her heart slam against her ribs. She was a waitress. She was supposed to be invisible. If she spoke up, she would ruin her cover. Marcus would see her. He would know she was still alive and hiding in the city. But if she stayed quiet, Do-hyun was going to walk right into a massive trap. She had to make a choice. Keep her head down and survive, or blow the whole room wide open and get her payback. The silence in the room stretched out, tight and heavy. Do-hyun narrowed his eyes at her. He knew she knew something. If you're enjoying this story so far, please leave a like to help the algorithm push more videos like this to you. Let us know in the comments where you are watching from today. And listen very closely. If you don't hit that subscribe button for Afro-Korean Love FM right now, you might leave Nneka standing dead in her tracks, completely at the mercy of the men who destroyed her family and the ruthless mafia boss staring her down. Don't be the reason she gets a bullet to the head tonight. Subscribe now to save her life and help her get her revenge. Nneka's hands shook so hard that the crystal glasses on her silver tray clinked together. The sharp sound rang out in the quiet room. "Hey," Marcus barked, turning his fat neck to glare at her. "Watch what the hell you're doing. That glass costs more than your life." Nneka didn't look at him. She kept her eyes locked on Do-hyun. The mafia boss did not blink. He just stared at her, waiting. He tilted his head a tiny bit, like a predator studying a nervous bird. Marcus let out a harsh laugh. He leaned back in his leather chair and pointed a thick finger at Nneka. "Wait a damn minute. Turn around, look at me. Nneka slowly turned her head. She met Marcus's eyes. Holy shit, Marcus said, his smile growing wide and mean. David, look at this. Do you know who this is? It's Nneka, the high and mighty lawyer, the girl who swore she was going to put us in jail. Marcus laughed louder, a wet, gross sound. Look at you now, you're pouring my fucking drinks. I heard you went into hiding after your daddy died. Leave my father out of this, Nneka said. Her voice was quiet, but it shook with pure hate. Why? David chimed in, grinning. He owed a lot of money to some dangerous guys, just like you do now. You're a pathetic loser, Nneka. Now shut up, put the water on the table, and get the hell out of here. The adults are doing business. Do-hyun watched this exchange. He didn't speak English very well, but he understood the tone. He understood disrespect. He looked at his translator. Who is this woman? Do-hyun asked in Korean. Why are they yelling at her? Park wiped sweat from his forehead. He looked sick. She is just a stupid waitress, boss. They know her from the past. It is nothing. Let us finish signing the paper. Nneka felt the fire burn in her chest. She had lost everything because of Marcus. Her home, her career, her family. She was living in a dirty, tiny room, eating old bread, hiding like a rat. And now, these men were going to win again. They were going to cheat a dangerous man and get richer. Fuck that, fuck all of this. Nneka was done hiding. She slammed the silver tray down on the expensive oak table. The glasses rattled. Water spilled over the edge and soaked into the wood. Hey, are you crazy? Marcus yelled, jumping up from his chair. Security, get this crazy bitch out of here. Nneka ignored him. She looked right into Do-hyun's cold black eyes. She took a deep breath, letting the Korean words form in her mind. He didn't say that, Nneka said in clear, perfect Korean. The entire room went dead silent. The only sound was the heavy rain hitting the window outside. Park's face turned completely white. His jaw dropped open. He looked at Nneka like she was a ghost. Do-hyun did not move a single muscle, but the look in his eyes changed. The boredom was gone. Now there was a sharp, dangerous spark in his dark eyes. What did you say? Do-hyun asked her, his voice dropping an octave. I said, your translator is lying to you, Nneka said in Korean. She stood up straight. She didn't feel like a waitress anymore. She felt like a lawyer in a courtroom. You told them that if the shipment is not in the warehouse by Friday, you will take 40% of their company. You told them there are no more delays. Do-hyun slowly nodded. Yes, that is what I said. Well, Nneka continued, pointing a finger at the sweating translator. This little rat just told them that you are happy to wait until next Wednesday and that you will not charge them any penalty fees. He changed your deal. They paid him off to screw you over. Do-hyun slowly turned his head to look at Park. Park started shaking violently. No, boss, please, she is crazy. She is a liar. I translated exactly what you said. Park stammered in Korean. He held his hands up in defense. She is just an angry waitress. Do not listen to her. Marcus didn't understand the Korean, but he could read the room. He saw the panic on the translator's face. He saw the dark, murderous look on Do-hyun's face. What the fuck is going on? Marcus demanded. He looked at David, who was already backing away from the table. What is she saying to him? Park, what is she saying? Do-hyun held up one hand. It was a simple movement, but it carried absolute power. The two massive bodyguards standing by the door instantly stepped forward. They reached inside their dark jackets. Marcus swallowed hard. He sat back down slowly. Do-hyun looked at Nneka. Translate for me, he ordered her in Korean. Tell this fat pig exactly what I say. Nneka nodded. Her heart was beating so fast she thought she might pass out, but she stood her ground. Tell him, Do-hyun said, his voice like cracking ice, that the deal is dead. Tell him I know he paid my man to lie to me. And tell him that because he tried to make me look like a fool, I am not taking 40% of his company. Do-hyun leaned forward, his eyes locked on Marcus. I am taking all of it, every last penny. Nneka turned to Marcus. She felt a sick, twisted sense of joy bubble up inside her stomach. She looked at the man who ruined her life. Mr. Baek says the deal is dead, Nneka said in English, her voice loud and steady. He knows you bribed his translator. Because you tried to play him, he is taking your entire company. All of it. Marcus's face turned bright red. The hell he is! This is America. You can't just take my company, you crazy bastard. Marcus slammed his fist on the table. I'll call the cops. I'll call the FBI. Nneka translated Marcus's, shouting into Korean for Do-hyun. Do-hyun didn't even blink. He reached across the table, grabbed a heavy glass ashtray, and smashed it directly into the translator's face. The sound of breaking bone echoed in the room. Park screamed, blood spraying from his broken nose. He fell out of his chair and crashed onto the floor, holding his face and crying. Marcus screamed and jumped back. David let out a high-pitched sound of pure fear. Do-hyun slowly wiped a drop of blood off his hand with a white napkin. He looked at Nneka. Tell him, Do-hyun said calmly, to call the police. Tell him I will send my men to his house before the police even pick up the phone. Ask him if his wife, Sarah, and his little daughter, Emily, are sleeping well tonight. Nneka felt a cold chill run down her spine. This man was a monster. He knew everything about his business partners. He knew their families. She turned to Marcus. He says you should call the cops, Nneka translated. But his men will visit your wife Sarah and your daughter Emily before the cops answer the phone. Marcus completely broke. The red color drained from his face, leaving him looking like a sick, pale ghost. He put his hands on his head. No, no, please, he begged, looking at Do-hyun. Leave my family out of this. Take the company, take whatever you want, just don't hurt them. Nneka translated his begging. Do-hyun nodded once. He stood up from his chair. He was very tall, towering over everyone in the room. He buttoned his suit jacket with one hand. He looked down at the crying translator on the floor, then kicked the man in the ribs. Park groaned and curled into a ball. Clean this trash up, Do-hyun said in Korean to his bodyguards, and make sure he never speaks again. The bodyguards dragged the bleeding translator out the back door. Do-hyun turned his attention to Nneka. He walked slowly around the large table until he was standing right in front of her. He smelled like rain, expensive wood, and danger. Nneka had to look up to meet his eyes. She tried not to show how scared she was. You, Do-hyun said in rough, broken English. He reached out and lightly touched the cheap fabric of her waitress uniform. You are not a waitress. Nneka swallowed hard. No, I used to be a lawyer. Do-hyun switched back to Korean. You hate those men, I saw it in your eyes, they did something bad to you. They ruined my family, Nneka replied in Korean. They stole from my father, they left me with massive debts. Bad people are looking for me. Do-hyun stared at her for a long time. The heavy rain continued to beat against the glass outside. The city was dark and loud, but inside this room, time felt like it had stopped completely. You are smart, you are brave, Do-hyun said softly. But you are also very stupid. By speaking tonight, you showed your face to your enemies. They will try to kill you now. Nneka felt the truth of his words hit her like a punch to the stomach. He was right. Marcus knew she was here. As soon as Do-hyun left, Marcus would send his goons or call the loan sharks to collect the bounty on her head. She had signed her own death warrant just to get 5 minutes of revenge. I know, Nneka whispered. Her tough act was starting to crack. Her hands began to shake again. I have nowhere to go. Do-hyun reached out and grabbed her wrist. His grip was tight, strong, and warm. Yes, you do, Do-hyun said. You saved me money tonight. You exposed a rat in my house. I owe you a debt. He pulled her slightly closer. You work for me now. You are my new translator, and you are going to help me destroy the rest of Marcus Vance's life. Before Nneka could even process the words, Do-hyun pulled her toward the door. Walk with me, he commanded, or stay here and die. The cold New York rain hammered against the thick glass windows of the VIP room. Nneka stood perfectly still in the dark corner, holding a heavy silver tray against her chest. Her cheap waitress uniform scratched her skin. Her feet throbbed with a dull, angry pain. She had been standing for 6 hours straight. But physical pain was nothing compared to the massive, crushing weight of her dead father's debt. $400,000. That was what she owed to some very bad people. Just 2 years ago, she was a top lawyer. Now, she was a ghost, a nobody pouring drinks for rich men who thought they owned the world. She took a slow, quiet breath and looked at the men sitting around the massive oak table. On one side sat Marcus Vance and his partner, David. They were the exact corporate snakes who framed her father. They stole his company, ruined his good name, and drove him to a heart attack. Just looking at Marcus's smug, fat face made Nneka want to scream. She wanted to grab the heavy glass bottle of whiskey from her tray and smash it over his bald head. But she couldn't. If she made a scene, she would lose this job. If she lost this job, the loan sharks would find her and kill her. So she kept her mouth shut. She swallowed her anger and stepped closer to the table to pour more water. On the other side of the table sat Baek Do-hyun. He was the most dangerous man Nneka had ever seen. He didn't wear a flashy watch or smile like the corporate guys. He sat perfectly still, wearing a dark, custom suit that looked sharp enough to cut glass. His black hair was pushed back, and his dark eyes were cold and dead. He was a major boss in the Korean syndicate, and he controlled half the shipping ports on the East Coast. He brought a heavy, dark energy into the room. Even the air around him felt cold. Next to Do-hyun sat his translator, a nervous, sweaty little man named Park. Park kept pulling at his shirt collar. He looked like a rat caught in a trap. Do-hyun leaned forward and spoke in a low, rough voice. He spoke in Korean. "If the shipment is not in my warehouse by Friday night," Do-hyun said, his voice quiet but deadly, "I will not just cancel the deal. I will take 40% of your company as a penalty. No more delays." Nneka froze. She kept her head down, but her eyes went wide. She knew Korean. Her old college roommate was from Seoul, and Nneka had studied the language for 4 years to handle international law cases. She understood every single word Do-hyun just said. It was a clear, brutal threat. But Park, the nervous translator, did not say that. Park turned to Marcus Vance and forced a fake smile. "Mr. Baek says he understands the weather has caused delays," Park said in English. "He is happy to give you until next Wednesday to deliver the goods, and he will keep the original price. No penalties." Nneka's breath hitched in her throat. The translator was lying. He was changing the terms. He was selling Do-hyun out. Marcus and David shared a quick, greedy look. They were paying the translator off. They were setting up the Mafia boss, playing him for a total fool. Do-hyun noticed Nneka stop moving. His cold, dark eyes slowly shifted from the men at the table and locked onto her. He watched her shaking hands. He saw the shock on her face. Nneka felt her heart slam against her ribs. She was a waitress. She was supposed to be invisible. If she spoke up, she would ruin her cover. Marcus would see her. He would know she was still alive and hiding in the city. But if she stayed quiet, Do-hyun was going to walk right into a massive trap. She had to make a choice. Keep her head down and survive, or blow the whole room wide open and get her payback. The silence in the room stretched out, tight and heavy. Do-hyun narrowed his eyes at her. He knew she knew something. If you're enjoying this story so far, please leave a like to help the algorithm push more videos like this to you. Let us know in the comments where you are watching from today. And listen very closely. If you don't hit that subscribe button for Afro-Korean Love FM right now, you might leave Nneka standing dead in her tracks, completely at the mercy of the men who destroyed her family and the ruthless mafia boss staring her down. Don't be the reason she gets a bullet to the head tonight. Subscribe now to save her life and help her get her revenge. Do-hyun's hand was like a steel trap around Nneka's wrist. He didn't run, but his steps were long and fast. Nneka had to practically jog to keep up with him. He dragged her out of the VIP room and down a narrow, carpeted hallway. A few waitresses in cheap uniforms pressed themselves against the walls, their eyes wide with fear as the mafia boss marched past them. Nneka wanted to tell them to help her, to call the police, but the words died in her dry throat. She knew the police could not help her now. If the cops got involved, Marcus would find out, and the loan sharks would find out. She was completely trapped. He pushed through the heavy metal back door of the restaurant. The cold New York rain hit Nneka right in the face. It was pouring now. The wind whipped through the dark alley, making her shiver violently in her thin white button-down shirt. 2 massive black SUVs sat idling in the alley, their headlights cutting through the heavy rain. 4 men in dark suits stood around the cars. They didn't look like normal bodyguards. They looked like killers. One of them, a tall man with a scar running down his neck, immediately opened the back door of the first SUV and held up a large black umbrella. "Get in," Do-hyun said in Korean. He let go of her wrist and pointed at the open door. Nneka hesitated for half a second. She looked down the dark alley. The street was just a few yards away. Maybe she could run. Maybe she could lose herself in the crowded city blocks, but Do-hyun stepped closer, blocking the light from the street. He looked down at her, the rain making his black hair stick to his forehead. "If you run, you will make it 3 blocks before Marcus's men catch you," Do-hyun said, his voice flat and calm over the sound of the rain. "Or my men will catch you, and I am not feeling very patient tonight. Get in the car." She swallowed hard, tasting rainwater and fear. She nodded once and climbed into the back of the massive SUV. The seats were made of soft, black leather. It smelled like expensive cologne and gun oil. Do-hyun slid in right beside her. The bodyguard shut the heavy door, trapping them inside. The thick glass completely cut off the sound of the rain and the city. It was terrifyingly quiet inside the car. The engine growled, a deep, powerful sound, and the SUV pulled out of the alley. Nneka pressed herself against the car door, trying to put as much space between her and Do-hyun as possible. She hugged her arms tightly across her chest, shaking from the cold and the adrenaline. Do-hyun did not look at her. He reached out and pressed a button on the armrest. A small glass panel slowly rolled up, separating the back seat from the driver and the bodyguard in the front. Now they were completely alone. He opened a small compartment, pulled out a clean white towel, and tossed it onto Nneka's lap. "Dry your hair," he ordered in Korean. "You are making a mess of my car." Nneka grabbed the towel. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold it. She rubbed her wet hair, taking a slow, deep breath to stop her teeth from chattering. She kept her eyes on him. He was leaning back in his seat, watching the city lights blur past the wet window. He looked completely relaxed, like he hadn't just smashed a man's face in with a heavy glass ashtray. "What is your name?" Do-hyun asked, still looking out the window. "Nneka," she said, her voice cracked. She cleared her throat and tried again. "My name is Nneka." He slowly turned his head to look at her. His dark eyes scanned her from head to toe. He took in her cheap, wet uniform, her worn-out black shoes, and the absolute terror in her brown eyes. "Nneka," he repeated. His Korean accent made the name sound sharp. "You said you used to be a lawyer. You said those men ruined your family. Tell me the truth. Do not leave anything out. If I think you are lying, I will open this door and throw you out onto the highway." Nneka believed him. She gripped the white towel tightly in her hands. She had spent the last 2 years trying to hide her story, trying to bury the past so she could survive. Now, she had to dig it all up. "My father owned a shipping and logistics company," Nneka started, speaking Korean carefully so she wouldn't mess up the words. "It was a good company. We handled cargo coming into the New Jersey ports. Marcus Vance and his partner, David, wanted to buy my father out. My father said no. He built the company from nothing, and he wanted to keep it." Do-hyun nodded slowly. "So Marcus took it by force." "Yes," Nneka said, her voice growing a little harder as the anger started to push past the fear. "They set him up. They planted illegal weapons in one of my father's cargo crates. Then they tipped off the feds. The government froze all of our assets. The banks called in all my father's business loans at the same time. We had no money to fight the charges. Marcus swooped in, bought the debt for pennies, and took over the entire company to save it." "And your father?" Do-hyun asked. "He had a heart attack," Nneka said. She looked down at her hands. The memory still felt like a knife twisting in her stomach. "He died before the trial even started, but the debt didn't die. My father had borrowed money from some bad people to try and save the business before the end. Loan sharks. When he died, that debt fell on me. $400,000. Do-hyun let out a short, harsh laugh. It wasn't a happy sound, it was mocking. 400,000? That is nothing, that is pocket change. It is a lot of money when you are pouring water for $8 an hour, Nneka snapped. She didn't mean to raise her voice, but the stress was breaking her down. "I lost my law license because they framed me too. They said I helped him hide the money. I had to run. I have been hiding in a shitty apartment in Queens, working off the books, trying to pay off killers who will shoot me if I miss a weekly payment." Do-hyun watched her chest heave as she breathed heavily. He liked the anger in her eyes. It was better than the fear. A scared dog will just bite and run. An angry dog can be trained to hunt. "Marcus is a dead man," Do-hyun said quietly. "He insulted me tonight. He tried to steal my money and make me look like a fool. In my world, that means he does not get to breathe my air anymore. But simply killing him is too fast. It is too easy. Do-hyun leaned closer to her. The smell of gun oil was stronger now. I want to take everything from him. I want to take his money, his houses, his businesses, and his pride. I want him to end up exactly like your father. Broke, broken, and dead in the dirt. Nneka stared into his cold black eyes. She felt a twisted sense of agreement. It was exactly what Marcus deserved. It was what she had dreamed about every single night in her freezing, dirty apartment. "What do you want from me?" Nneka asked. "You are a lawyer," Do-hyun said. "You know his business, you know his dirty tricks, and you speak my language perfectly. My old translator is currently bleeding out in a dumpster. You are going to take his place, but you will not just translate my words. You will look at every contract Marcus has. You will find his weak spots. You will help me tear his life apart piece by piece." "And if I do this," Nneka asked, her heart was hammering against her ribs, "what happens to me?" "I will pay your stupid little debt tomorrow morning," Do-hyun said, waving his hand like it was completely unimportant. "Those loan sharks will never look at you again. I will pay you $100,000 a month to work for me. You will get your revenge, and you will get rich." Nneka's mind spun. $100,000 a month, her entire debt gone in one day? It sounded like a miracle, but she knew men like Do-hyun. He wasn't offering her a job, he was buying her soul. "There is a catch," she said. "There is always a catch with guys like you." Do-hyun smiled. It was a terrifying, sharp smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You are smart. Yes, there is a catch. You belong to me now. You do not leave my sight. You do not make a move without my permission. You live where I tell you to live. You eat what I tell you to eat. If you try to run away or if you lie to me, I will not fire you. I will bury you next to Marcus." The car took a sharp turn, tires hissing on the wet pavement. Nneka felt sick. She had traded one set of monsters for a much bigger, much more dangerous monster. But did she really have a choice? If she walked away right now, she would be dead by tomorrow morning. "Okay," Nneka whispered. "Okay, I will work for you." "Good," Do-hyun said. He turned away from her and looked back out the window. "We are going to my house. You will stay there." Nneka panicked slightly. "Wait, I need to go to my apartment. I need my clothes. I have some money hidden under my bed and a picture of my dad. I need my things." Do-hyun didn't even look at her. "No, your apartment is a trap now. Marcus is not an idiot. He saw your face. He knows you ruined his deal. Right now, he has men kicking down the door to your apartment. If you go back there, they will put a bullet in your head." "But my stuff is garbage," Do-hyun interrupted roughly. "You do not need anything from your old life. I will buy you new clothes. I will give you everything you need. You are dead to the rest of the world now, Nneka. You only exist for me." The finality of his words hung heavy in the air. Nneka sank back into the soft leather seat, clutching the white towel in her lap. She looked out the tinted window. The rain was coming down harder now, washing the dirty streets of New York. She watched the blurry streetlights pass by, knowing she could never go back to her old life. She was trapped in the dark now, riding next to the devil, and all she could do was hold on tight. The SUV slowed down as it approached a massive, high-rise building in the richest part of Manhattan. The gates swung open automatically, and the car rolled down into a brightly lit, private underground parking garage. The garage was completely empty except for 3 other black luxury cars and 4 armed guards walking the perimeter. The car stopped. The bodyguard in the front seat immediately got out and opened Do-hyun's door. "Get out," Do-hyun told Nneka. She stepped out of the car. The air in the garage was dry and warm, a huge relief from the freezing rain outside. Her wet uniform stuck to her skin, making her feel dirty and out of place in this clean, expensive space. Do-hyun walked past her, adjusting the cuffs of his sharp suit. He didn't look back to see if she was following. He just expected her to obey. Nneka followed him toward a private elevator made of shiny steel and glass. The bodyguard stayed behind, watching them silently. Do-hyun pressed a button on a keypad, typing in a long code, and then placed his thumb on a scanner. The heavy doors slid open with a soft ping. They stepped inside. The elevator shot upward so fast Nneka's stomach dropped. She watched the digital numbers above the door climb higher and higher. 40th floor, 50th floor, 60th floor. She was going straight to the top of the city. "You will sleep in the guest room tonight?" Do-hyun said, his eyes fixed on the elevator doors. Tomorrow morning, my tailor will come to measure you for proper clothes. Then, we start working. I want a complete list of all of Marcus's dummy corporations by noon. I don't have access to a computer, Nneka said quietly. You will have everything, Do-hyun replied as the elevator chimed and stopped at the penthouse level. Do not give me excuses, give me results. The doors opened, and Nneka stepped into a new world. The elevator doors slid open with a soft ping. Nneka stepped out and stopped breathing for a second. The penthouse was massive. It was bigger than the entire floor of her old law firm. The floors were made of dark, shiny wood. Huge glass windows wrapped around the whole room, showing the glittering lights of the New York City skyline through the heavy rain. There was barely any furniture. Just a long black leather couch, a giant glass table, and a massive flat screen on the wall. It looked like a place where a ghost lived. No family pictures, no warm colors, just black, white, and cold gray steel. Do-hyun walked past her, pulling his arms out of his wetsuit jacket. He threw the expensive jacket onto the glass table without caring. He unbuttoned the top of his dark shirt and rubbed his neck. He looked tired, but his eyes were still sharp and dangerous. Down the hall, Do-hyun said in Korean, pointing a long finger to the right. Last door on the left, that is your room. There is a bathroom inside. Take a shower. You smell like cheap diner food. Nneka felt a hot flash of anger in her chest, but she bit the inside of her cheek to keep quiet. She was not in a position to talk back. She was standing in the home of a man who just beat someone half to death and ordered hits on a family. Do not come out of that room until I send someone for you, Do-hyun added. He finally looked at her. If you try to find a phone to call the police, my guards will break your hands. If you try to jump off the balcony to escape, well, we are on the 60th floor. It will be a very fast trip to the bottom. Good night, Nneka. He turned his back on her and walked toward another hallway, disappearing into the dark. Nneka stood alone in the massive living room. The only sound was the wind howling against the thick glass. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering from the wet uniform. She had traded the dirty, dangerous streets for a beautiful, silent prison, and she had no idea if she was going to live to see tomorrow. If you're glued to your screen and want to see how Nneka destroys the men who ruined her life, please leave a like on this video. It helps the algorithm push more dark romance stories to you. Tell me down in the comments, rate this story from 1 to 10 so far, and listen to me very carefully. If you do not hit that subscribe button for Afro-Korean Love FM right now, Nneka might not find those hidden files tomorrow. Do-hyun will think she is useless, and he will throw her right off that 60th floor balcony. Don't let her hit the concrete. Hit subscribe to keep her safe and help her get her total revenge. The morning sun did not bring any warmth to the city. The New York sky was a solid, ugly gray, and a cold drizzle kept hitting the bedroom window. Nneka woke up with a loud gasp, her heart hammering against her ribs. She shot up in the bed, looking around wildly. For a second, she thought she was back in her tiny, freezing apartment in Queens, waiting for the loan sharks to kick her door down. Then she felt the sheets. They were silk. The mattress was softer than a cloud. She looked at the giant, empty room around her. The memories of last night rushed back into her brain like a flood of cold water. The VIP room, the lie, the heavy glass ashtray smashing into the translator's face. Do-hyun. She let out a long, shaky breath and rubbed her face. She was still alive. That was step one. Someone knocked loudly on the thick wooden door. Nneka jumped. Before she could even say a word, the door swung open. Two large men in black suits stepped into the room. They crossed their arms and stared straight ahead, completely ignoring her. Behind them walked a small, older Korean woman holding a yellow tape measure and a large black leather bag. Stand up, the older woman said in very sharp, broken English. Take off clothes. Nneka pulled the silk sheet up to her chin. Excuse me, who the hell are you? I am Taylor, the woman snapped, switching to rapid Korean. She looked annoyed. Mr. Baek said you need to look like a person, not a homeless rat. He said you have important work today. Stand up. I do not have all day to measure you. Nneka looked at the two giant guards. They clearly were not going to leave. She felt a deep, humiliating burn in her cheeks, but she remembered Do-hyun's warning. She belonged to him now. She took a deep breath dropped the sheet, and climbed out of bed wearing only her simple underwear. The cold air in the room made her shiver. The older woman walked up to her, pulled the tape measure out, and started wrapping it around Nneka's waist, her chest, her arms, and her legs. The woman called out numbers in Korean, and one of the guards typed them into a small tablet. It took 10 minutes. The tailor worked fast, poking and prodding Nneka like she was a piece of meat at a market. "Done," the tailor said. She opened her black leather bag and pulled out a stack of clothes. She dropped them on the edge of the bed. "Wear these for today. I will bring the custom suits tomorrow. Mr. Baek is waiting for you in the office. Do not be late." The tailor packed her bag and marched out of the room. The two guards followed her, shutting the heavy door behind them with a loud click. Nneka let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She walked over to the clothes. The tailor had left a pair of black, wide-leg trousers, a crisp white silk blouse, and a soft gray cashmere sweater. Next to the clothes was a pair of black leather flat shoes. Nneka touched the silk shirt. It felt like water slipping through her fingers. She hadn't worn clothes this nice since she was a top lawyer at her father's firm. She got dressed quickly. The clothes fit perfectly, even though they were just off the rack. She walked into the massive marble bathroom and splashed cold water on her face. She looked at herself in the mirror. The scared, beaten-down waitress was gone. The woman looking back at her had sharp eyes and a tight, angry jaw. She looked ready for a fight. She walked out of her bedroom and followed the long hallway back to the main living area. The penthouse was huge, but it was easy to find Do-hyun. He was sitting at a massive black glass desk in an open office area near the giant windows. He was wearing a simple black turtleneck and dark pants, but he still looked like he owned the entire world. He was typing on a very thin, silver laptop. There was a fresh cup of black coffee steaming next to him, and a second, closed laptop sitting across from him. "Sit," Do-hyun commanded in Korean, without even looking up from his screen. Nneka walked over and sat in the black leather chair across from him. She kept her back straight. She wasn't going to act like a scared dog anymore. If she was going to be his partner in this revenge, she needed to show him she had a spine. "Good morning to you, too," Nneka said in clear Korean. Do-hyun stopped typing. He slowly raised his head and looked at her. His dark, cold eyes locked onto hers. The silence stretched out between them, thick and heavy. Nneka refused to look away. She kept her chin up. A tiny, almost invisible smile touched the corner of Do-hyun's mouth. "You look better. The clothes fit." "They are fine," Nneka said. "What is the plan today?" Do-hyun closed his laptop and leaned forward, resting his elbows on the glass desk. "I kept my promise. I made a phone call at 6 o'clock this morning. Your debt to the loan sharks is gone. The men who were looking for you have been told that if they ever say your name again, I will cut out their tongues. You are completely free from the street." Nneka felt a massive, heavy weight lift off her chest. She almost couldn't believe it. $400,000. Gone. 2 years of running, hiding, starving, and shaking in the dark, all wiped away with one phone call from this terrifying man. "Thank you," Nneka whispered. It was the most honest thing she had said in years. "Do not thank me yet," Do-hyun said, his voice dropping low and cold. "You owe me now, and I collect my debts. Open the computer." Nneka reached out and opened the silver laptop in front of her. The screen glowed to life. It was already logged into a highly secure, private network. There were dozens of folders sitting on the desktop. "My men hacked into Marcus Vance's corporate servers last night," Do-hyun explained, tapping his finger on his desk. "Marcus is a stupid, greedy pig. He thinks he is safe because he uses American banks. But every pig leaves a trail of mud. I want you to find it." Nneka pulled the laptop closer. She felt the old thrill of the hunt waking up inside her brain. She clicked on the first folder. It was filled with hundreds of PDF documents, banking statements, shipping logs, and tax returns. "What exactly am I looking for?" she asked, her eyes scanning the file names. "Marcus buys shipping companies, bankrupts them, and then sells the assets," Do-hyun said. "But he does not keep the money in his main company accounts. If he did, the government would take it for taxes. He hides the money in dummy corporations, shell companies, fake businesses that only exist on paper. I want the names of those companies, the account numbers, and the passwords. If we drain his accounts, he will know it was you. Nneka pointed out. She clicked open a massive spreadsheet full of numbers. He knows you are angry about the deal last night. I want him to know, Do-hyun said with a dark, cruel look in his eyes. I want him to wake up tomorrow, check his bank, and see zero. I want him to panic. I want him to feel exactly how your father felt when Marcus took everything from him. Nneka stopped scrolling. She looked up at Do-hyun. He was watching her closely. He was testing her. He wanted to see if she was too soft for this kind of brutal war. My father called me the night before he died, Nneka said, her voice quiet but hard. He was crying. He told me that he had failed me. He said Marcus took our money, our name, and our future. He said he didn't want to live anymore. The next morning, his heart just stopped. It gave out from the stress. Nneka looked back down at the screen. She gripped the edge of the laptop tightly. Marcus didn't just steal a company, he murdered my dad. So no, draining his bank account is not enough. I want him in the dirt. Do-hyun nodded slowly. He approved of her anger. Then stop talking and start hunting. You have until noon. If you do not find the shell companies by then, I will handle Marcus my own way. And my way involves guns, blood, and the police asking questions. Nneka didn't reply. She cracked her knuckles and leaned into the screen. She was back in her element. She knew how Marcus Vance thought. She had worked against his lawyers before she was framed. Marcus was lazy. He liked to use the same tricks over and over again. She opened the tax returns for the last 3 years. She ignored the big numbers at the top and scrolled straight down to the deductions and charitable donations. Marcus wasn't a nice guy. He didn't give money to charity to be kind. He did it to wash dirty money. Okay, look at this, Nneka said, her eyes moving fast across the lines of text. She spoke in Korean so Do-hyun could follow along. Last year, Marcus's main company donated $2 million to an environmental charity called the Green Harbor Foundation. But look at the address for the foundation. Do-hyun stood up and walked around the desk. He stood behind her chair, leaning over her shoulder to look at the screen. He smelled like expensive soap and dark coffee. His presence was huge and heavy, but Nneka forced herself to focus on the screen. It is a post office box in Delaware, Do-hyun noted, reading the address. Exactly, Nneka said, clicking her mouse rapidly. She opened a new search tab and typed in the foundation's name. Delaware has laws that let you create a business without showing who really owns it. It is the perfect place to hide stolen money. Let me check the shipping logs. She switched back to the hacked folders and opened the records for Marcus's private shipping yachts. She searched for the word Green Harbor. Bingo, Nneka whispered. Shit, he is so stupid. Explain, Do-hyun demanded, his voice low right next to her ear. The Green Harbor Foundation doesn't plant trees or clean oceans, Nneka said, a hard smile forming on her lips. It buys fuel and maintenance for Marcus's 3 private luxury yachts. He is using fake charity money, hiding it in Delaware, and then spending it on his personal boats. This is totally illegal, but it means the foundation has a real bank account attached to it. Find the bank, Do-hyun said. Nneka typed furiously. She cross-referenced the foundation's tax ID with Marcus's private banking emails that Do-hyun's men had scraped. She bypassed 2 simple password gates. Marcus used his daughter's birth year for everything, and suddenly, the screen flashed white, then loaded a new page. It was an offshore banking portal, located in the Cayman Islands. Nneka stared at the number on the screen. Her breath hitched in her throat. Holy shit, she whispered in English. What is the number? Do-hyun asked in Korean. Nneka pointed a shaking finger at the screen. Marcus didn't just hide the money he stole from my father. He has been stealing from everyone. His partners, his investors, maybe even other mob bosses. Do-hyun, there is $45 million sitting in the single account. Do-hyun looked at the screen. He didn't look surprised. He looked hungry. Good girl, Do-hyun said softly. He reached out and put his large, warm hand on Nneka's shoulder. His grip was firm, almost possessive. Transfer every single penny of it to my private accounts. Right now. Nneka's hands hovered over the silver keyboard. Her fingers were shaking so badly she could barely keep them straight. Transferring $45 million was not like moving $10 on a phone app. It was a massive, dangerous crime. If the federal government caught her, she would spend the rest of her life locked inside a concrete box. But if she did not do it, Do-hyun might kill her right here in this cold, beautiful penthouse. Do-hyun stepped closer. He placed his large, warm hands on her shoulders. His grip was tight. He leaned down, his face right next to her ear. She could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the faint metallic scent of danger. She could feel his hot breath against her neck, sending a wild shiver all the way down her spine. "Do it," Do-hyun whispered in Korean. His voice was dark and smooth. "Press the button, Nneka, take his life away." "If I do this," Nneka said, her voice cracking, "there is no going back. Marcus will know it was us. We just stole his entire secret fortune. He will send every single gun he has to come find us." "Let him send them," Do-hyun replied. His thumbs rubbed slow, heavy circles into her tense shoulders. "I have more guns, and I have you. Type in the routing numbers. Now." She swallowed hard. Her throat felt like sandpaper. She looked at the glowing screen. She thought about her father. She thought about his tired, defeated eyes staring up at the ceiling of his cheap hospital room right before his heart gave out. Marcus did that. Marcus stole her dad's life, and then he forced Nneka to live like a rat in the dirt. "Fuck him," Nneka whispered. She slammed her fingers onto the keyboard. She typed in Do-hyun's private, untraceable account numbers as fast as she could. She moved the mouse over to the bright green button that said Submit Transfer. Her index finger rested on the cold plastic of the mouse. "This is for my dad," she said, and she clicked the button. The screen loaded for 3 agonizing seconds. A little blue circle spun round and round. The silence in the penthouse was deafening. Even the New York rain outside seemed to stop hitting the glass. Then, a giant green checkmark appeared on the screen. "Transfer complete. Current balance, $0. Nneka let out a long, shaky breath and fell back against her chair. She bumped right into Do-hyun's chest. He did not move away. Instead, he wrapped his strong arms around her waist, holding her tight against him. "It is done," Do-hyun said softly, a dark smile spreading across his face. "The pig is bleeding." Suddenly, a harsh, loud buzzing noise ripped through the quiet room. Do-hyun's cell phone was vibrating violently against the black glass desk. The bright screen lit up, flashing a name in big, bold letters, Marcusvance. If your heart is pounding out of your chest right now, please leave a like on this video to help the algorithm push more intense dark romance stories to you. Tell me down in the comments, where are you listening from today? And pay very close attention. If you do not hit that subscribe button for Afro-Korean Love FM right now, Marcus Vance is going to trace that phone call and send a team of ruthless killers straight to the penthouse. Do-hyun can't fight them all off alone, and Nneka will be caught in the crossfire. Don't let her die just when she got her revenge. Hit subscribe to help them survive the attack. Do-hyun looked at the buzzing phone on the desk. He did not look surprised. He slowly let go of Nneka's waist and walked around to the side of the desk. He picked up the phone, tapped the green button, and pressed the speaker icon. He set the phone back down on the glass. "Hello, Marcus," Do-hyun said in English. His accent was thick, but his tone was completely calm. He sounded like he was ordering a cup of coffee. "You crazy, stupid son of a bitch," Marcus screamed through the phone. His voice was so loud and panicked that the small speaker actually crackled. "What the fuck did you just do? Where is my money?" Do-hyun pulled out his leather chair and sat down. He crossed his long legs and rested his hands on his lap. "I do not know what you are talking about. It is a rainy morning. I am just sitting in my home." "Don't play stupid with me," Marcus roared. Nneka could hear him breathing heavily, like a fat man who just ran up a flight of stairs. "My offshore accounts are empty. $45 million, Beak. Gone. I know you hacked me. I know you took it." "If you had $45 million in a secret account," Do-hyun said, a cold smile touching his lips, "you should have protected it better. Maybe you gave the password to the wrong person." "Listen to me, you arrogant prick," Marcus snarled. "That was not just my money. I hold money for some very bad people in this city. People who make your little Korean gang look like a joke. If I don't get that money back by noon, they are going to kill me. And then they are going to come for you." "They can try," Do-hyun said simply, "but you will be dead, so you will not get to see it." "I know she is with you," Marcus suddenly yelled. His voice sounded crazy, completely pushed to the edge. I know that little bitch Nneka is sitting right there. She is the only one who knows how to find my shell companies. She used to look at my books. Tell her I am going to find her. Tell her I am going to peel the skin off her face. Nneka felt her blood run cold, but then the anger flared up again, hot and blinding. She leaned forward, getting right next to the phone on the desk. I'm right here, Marcus, Nneka said, her voice dropping into a deadly, flat tone. The phone went silent for a second. Only the sound of Marcus's heavy, wet breathing came through the speaker. You stupid little whore, Marcus hissed. You think you can take me down? I crushed your father like a bug. I took his life, and I will take yours. You are making a deal with the devil, Nneka. Baek is going to use you and throw you in the river. My father says hello from the grave, Marcus, Nneka replied. She looked up at Do-hyun, who was watching her with deep, dark approval in his eyes. You have $0, you have 0 boats. I even took the loose change out of your checking accounts. You are a broke, dead man. I will kill you, Marcus screamed, his voice breaking. I swear to God, I will tear your fucking head off. Do-hyun reached out and pressed the red button. The call ended instantly. The penthouse went back to being dead silent, except for the rain hitting the massive windows. Nneka fell back into her chair. Her chest was heaving up and down. She felt sick to her stomach, but she also felt a wild, crazy high. She had actually done it. She had ruined the man who destroyed her family. He is scared, Do-hyun said softly. He leaned forward and studied her face. A scared pig is a dangerous pig. He will not wait. He will send men to this building today. Are we safe here? Nneka asked. She looked over her shoulder at the private elevator doors. Can his guys get past your security? My men are the best in the city, Do-hyun answered. But no fortress is perfect. If Marcus pays enough money, someone will find a way inside. That is how the world works. Do-hyun stood up from his desk. He walked over to a large painting hanging on the far wall. It was a picture of a dark, violent storm over an ocean. He reached behind the heavy wooden frame and pressed a hidden button. The wall clicked, and the painting swung open like a door. Behind it was a dark gray steel safe. He typed a fast code into the keypad and pulled the heavy door open. He reached inside and pulled out a sleek, black handgun. It looked heavy and brutal. He also grabbed 2 extra magazines of bullets. He walked back to the desk and dropped the gun right in front of Nneka. The heavy metal clunked against the thick glass. Nneka jumped back slightly. She stared at the weapon. What is that for? It is for you, Do-hyun said in a flat voice. You took his money. Now you must be ready to take a life. Stand up. Nneka shook her head slowly. I don't know how to use that. I am a lawyer. I use computers and contracts. I don't shoot people. Do-hyun let out a harsh sigh. He walked around the desk, grabbed her by the arm, and pulled her up from the chair. He did not hurt her, but his strength was terrifying. He pushed her slightly until she was standing right in front of the desk, facing the big glass windows. Contracts do not stop bullets, Nneka, he said, standing right behind her. His voice was a low rumble against her ear. You are in my world now. In my world, if you cannot pull the trigger, you die. Pick it up. Nneka looked down at the black gun. Her hands were shaking again. She slowly reached out and wrapped her fingers around the grip. It was freezing cold and much heavier than it looked in the movies. Good, Do-hyun said. He stepped closer, pressing his chest against her back. He reached around her with both arms. His large, warm hands covered her small, shaking hands. He carefully adjusted her fingers, placing them in the correct spots on the grip. Keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to kill, he instructed in Korean. He moved her index finger to the side of the metal frame. Hold it tight. If you hold it loose, it will jump back and break your nose. Nneka could barely focus on the gun. Do-hyun was completely surrounding her. He was so close she could feel the hard muscles of his chest and stomach against her back. The heat coming off his body was intense. It was a strange, confusing mix of pure terror and a deep, pulling attraction that she did not want to feel. He was a monster, but right now, he was the only thing keeping her safe. Raise your arms, he commanded softly. She lifted the gun, pointing it at the gray, rainy city outside the thick glass window. Do-hyun kept his hands over hers, guiding her aim. Look down the sights, he said, his lips brushing against her hair as he spoke. Breathe in slow, let it out slow. When your lungs are empty, that is when you squeeze the trigger. Do not yank it. Squeeze it like you are holding a fragile piece of glass. Nneka took a slow breath in. She felt his chest expand against her back as he breathed with her. She let the air out slowly. If Marcus sends a man through that elevator door, Do-hyun whispered, you do not ask questions. You do not scream. You point this at the center of his chest and you shoot until the gun is empty. Do you understand me? Yes, Nneka whispered back. Say it louder, Do-hyun demanded, his grip tightening over her hands. Say you will kill them. I will kill them, Nneka said. Her voice grew stronger. She stared down the sights of the gun, aiming at an invisible enemy in the rainy sky. I will kill anyone who tries to hurt me. Do-hyun slowly lowered her arms. He stepped back, giving her space. The sudden loss of his body heat made Nneka shiver. Keep the gun with you at all times, Do-hyun said, his eyes scanning the large penthouse. Even when you sleep. Now we need to move the money again. We have to push it through 3 more banks before Marcus's federal friends try to freeze my accounts. Sit back down. Nneka put the heavy black gun on the desk, right next to the silver laptop. She sat back down in the leather chair. She looked at the screen, and then she looked at the weapon. Her old life was completely dead. The woman who poured water for rich men in cheap diners was gone. She opened the next folder on the computer. Where do we send the money next? She asked, her voice steady and hard. Do-hyun smiled. It was a real smile this time, showing white teeth. Send 10 million to a bank in Switzerland. Send the rest to a shipping company I own in Macau. Make it disappear, Nneka. For the next 4 hours, they worked in silence. The only sounds in the room were the fast clicking of Nneka's keyboard and the heavy rain washing the city outside. Do-hyun stayed close by, pacing the floor, making short, quiet phone calls in rapid Korean. He was moving his soldiers around the city, preparing for the war that was about to start. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the private elevator chimed softly. Nneka instantly froze. Her hand shot away from the laptop keyboard and grabbed the heavy black gun. She stood up, her heart slamming in her chest, and aimed the weapon right at the steel doors. Do-hyun reached inside his dark jacket, pulling out a second gun in a flash of lightning-fast movement. He pointed it at the elevator. The heavy steel doors slowly slid open. The heavy steel doors of the private elevator slid apart with a soft, expensive ping. For one tiny second, Nneka forgot how to breathe. The cold metal of the gun in her hands felt like a block of ice. Inside the elevator stood 3 men. They did not look like security guards. They wore thick black body armor and dark ski masks covering their faces. They were holding short, ugly black rifles equipped with long silencers. Marcus had not sent people to talk. He had sent a hit squad. Before the doors were even fully open, Do-hyun fired his weapon. The sound of his gun was the loudest thing Nneka had ever heard in her entire life. It did not sound like a pop from a movie. It was a deafening, chest-rattling boom that physically hurt her ears. The first bullet hit the man standing in the middle of the elevator. The impact threw him backward against the mirrored wall. Blood sprayed across the clean glass in a bright, wet pattern. The man slid down to the floor, leaving a thick red smear behind him. The other 2 men raised their rifles. Get down, Do-hyun roared in Korean. He shoved Nneka hard by the shoulder. She lost her balance and crashed hard onto the dark wooden floor. A second later, the air above her head literally tore apart. The silenced rifles made rapid, spitting sounds. The massive glass desk where she had just been sitting exploded into a million pieces. The silver laptop shattered, sending bits of plastic and wire flying everywhere. Tiny shards of glass rained down on Nneka's hair and back. She covered her head with her arms and screamed. She pressed her face flat against the floor, tasting dust and fear. Her ears were ringing with a high, painful pitch. The smell of gunpowder filled the room, harsh and burning like sulfur. Do-hyun did not hide. He moved to the side, his arm perfectly straight, and fired twice more. Boom! Boom! Another man fell out of the elevator, dropping his rifle. But the third killer stepped out into the living room. He turned his dark mask toward the floor. He pointed the black barrel of his rifle right at Nneka's head. If your heart is racing and you are loving this crazy shootout, please leave a like on this video to help the algorithm push more intense dark romance audiobooks to you. Tell me down in the comments, rate this story from 1 to 10 so far, and listen to me very carefully. If you do not hit that subscribe button for Afro-Korean Love FM right now, Nneka is going to catch a bullet to the brain right there on that cold floor. Do-hyun cannot kill this whole hit squad alone. Don't let her die just when she finally stole her revenge. Hit subscribe right now to save her life and help them escape this deadly trap. Time completely slowed down. Nneka looked up at the dark hole of the rifle barrel. She saw the killer's finger tighten on the trigger. She was going to die. Marcus was going to win. After everything, she was going to die on the floor like a dog. Shoot him, Do-hyun yelled from across the room. Shoot him now. Nneka remembered the heat of Do-hyun's chest against her back. She remembered the anger burning in her stomach. She thought of her father's tired face. With a desperate, loud cry, she lifted the heavy black gun with both hands. She didn't look down the sights. She just pointed it at the man in the mask and pulled the trigger as hard as she could. The gun kicked violently in her hands. It snapped back so hard her wrists burned with pain. She missed. The bullet flew wide, smashing into the expensive painting on the wall behind the killer. But the sudden, deafening boom from the floor startled the masked man. He flinched, turning his head toward the noise for just half a second. That was all Do-hyun needed. Do-hyun stepped out from behind a concrete pillar and fired one single shot. The bullet hit the masked man right in the side of the head. The man dropped like a heavy sack of wet dirt. He hit the floor and did not move again. Silence rushed back into the penthouse. It was a terrible, heavy silence, broken only by the sound of the rain hitting the windows and the wet, choking breaths of the second man bleeding out on the rug. Nneka stayed frozen on the floor. Her hands were still wrapped tightly around the gun. Her whole body was shaking so badly her teeth clacked together. She stared at the dead man lying just 5 feet away from her. A dark pool of blood was slowly spreading across the beautiful wood floor, creeping toward her black shoes. "Get up," Do-hyun said. His voice was completely flat. There was no fear in it, no panic. He walked over to the man choking on the rug, pointed his gun downward, and pulled the trigger one more time. The choking stopped. Nneka let out a broken sob and closed her eyes. She felt sick. Her stomach twisted into knots, and a bitter taste filled the back of her throat. "I said get up," Do-hyun repeated. He walked over and grabbed her by the arm, pulling her off the floor. His grip was rough and urgent. "Marcus knows where we are. This was just the first team. They will send more. We have to leave this building right now." Nneka stumbled to her feet. Her legs felt like they were made of water. "The computer," she stammered, looking at the completely destroyed glass desk. "The money." "The money is safe. I have my phone," Do-hyun said. He let go of her arm and walked over to the wall safe. He quickly threw stacks of cash and 4 extra gun magazines into a black leather duffel bag. He zipped it up and threw the strap over his shoulder. He walked back to her and grabbed her hand. "Hold your gun tight. Follow me. Do not stop walking until I tell you." He dragged her toward the kitchen area and pushed open a heavy gray door Nneka hadn't noticed before. It led to the emergency stairwell. The air inside was cold and smelled like old concrete and dust. A single bare light bulb hung from the ceiling. 60 floors, Do-hyun said, looking down the dark, twisting stairs. "We are going down, move fast." Nneka started down the stairs. Her new black flats were not made for running. They slipped on the dusty concrete. She gripped the metal railing with her free hand, holding the gun in the other. Do-hyun stayed right behind her. He moved silently, like a large, dangerous cat. He kept looking up, watching the stairs above them. They went down 10 floors, then 20. Nneka's thighs started to burn. Her breath came in short, loud gasps. The silence in the stairwell was terrifying. Every time her shoe scraped against the stone, the sound echoed loudly in the dark space. "Quiet," Do-hyun hissed suddenly. He grabbed her shoulder and pulled her hard against the concrete wall. Nneka held her breath. She listened. Down below them, around the 40th floor, she heard a heavy metal door groan open. Then, the sound of heavy boots stepping onto the concrete. The voices were low, speaking rapid English. "Check the stairs," a rough voice echoed up the shaft. The boss said block all the exits. If they come down, light them up. Nneka looked at Do-hyun. Her eyes were wide with pure panic. She shook her head side to side, silently begging him to find another way. But there was no other way. They were trapped in a vertical concrete tube. Do-hyun reached into his jacket and pulled out a long, black hunting knife. The blade caught the dim light from the bulb. He put his gun away. Firing a gun in this enclosed space would alert every single person in the building. He looked at Nneka and pointed a finger at her, then pointed down at the floor. He wanted her to stay exactly where she was. He moved past her, creeping down the stairs without making a single sound. He seemed to float over the concrete. Nneka peeked around the corner of the railing, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Two men in dark clothes were standing on the landing below. They had their backs turned to the stairs, looking at their phones. Do-hyun did not hesitate. He jumped the last 4 steps. He landed right behind the first man, wrapped one hand around his mouth to stop the scream, and drove the black knife deep into the side of the man's neck. Hot blood sprayed out, splattering against the gray wall. The second man spun around, dropping his phone. "Holy shit," he yelled, reaching for a gun on his belt. Do-hyun ripped the knife out and kicked the dead man forward into the second guy. They tangled together for a second. Do-hyun stepped in close, grabbed the second man's wrist, twisted it until a loud snap echoed in the stairwell, and then drove his knee directly into the man's face. The man fell backward, his nose completely crushed, blood pouring down his chin. Do-hyun dropped to one knee and finished the job quickly and quietly with the knife. It was over in 5 seconds. Nneka slapped her hand over her mouth. The smell of fresh blood wafted up the stairs. It smelled like hot copper and dirty pennies. Her stomach finally betrayed her. She leaned over the railing and threw up all the water and cheap diner food she had eaten the day before. She gagged violently, tears streaming down her face. She had wanted revenge. She had wanted Marcus to suffer. But seeing this, seeing men carved up like meat in a dirty stairwell, broke something inside her brain. She was not a killer. She was just a girl who wanted her dad back. Do-hyun wiped his bloody knife on the dead man's shirt. He looked up the stairs at her. He didn't look disgusted by her crying. He just looked impatient. "I told you," Do-hyun said softly, walking back up a few steps to reach her. He grabbed a clean white handkerchief from his pocket and pressed it into her hand. "In my world, you die or you kill. Wipe your mouth. We still have 40 floors to go." Nneka wiped her face, her hands trembling violently. She looked at the blood staining Do-hyun's expensive black turtleneck. "I can't do this," she sobbed quietly. "I can't just watch people get slaughtered." "You already did it," Do-hyun said. He stepped closer, crowding her against the cold wall. His dark eyes locked onto hers. "When you clicked that button and took his $45 million, you pulled the trigger on all these men. You started the war, Nneka. Now you have to walk through the blood with me. Come on." He took her hand again. His palm was warm and strong. Despite the horror, Nneka felt a twisted sense of safety when he touched her. She gripped his hand tightly and forced her tired legs to move past the dead bodies on the landing. She kept her eyes locked on the back of Do-hyun's neck, refusing to look down at the spreading pool of red. They ran down the rest of the stairs. By the time they reached the basement level, Nneka felt like she was going to pass out. Her lungs burned, and her legs were completely numb. Do-hyun pushed open the heavy steel door, leading to the underground parking garage. The garage was completely silent, but it was a graveyard. Do-hyun's 4 elite bodyguards were lying on the concrete floor in pools of blood. The massive black SUV they had ridden in last night was full of bullet holes, all the windows shattered. Marcus had sent a massive team. "Damn it," Do-hyun cursed in Korean. It was the first time he showed any real emotion. He let go of Nneka's hand and unzipped the duffel bag. He pulled out his handgun and loaded a fresh magazine into it. "They destroyed your cars," Nneka whispered, looking around the bright, empty garage. "How are we going to get out?" "I am not a stupid man. I do not put all my eggs in one basket," Do-hyun replied. He walked quickly past the ruined luxury cars toward a dark, dusty corner of the garage. Sitting there was an old, beaten-up gray Honda Civic. It looked like it belonged to a poor college student, not a mafia boss. Do-hyun smashed the driver's side window with the butt of his gun. He reached in, unlocked the door, and slid inside. He ripped the plastic cover off the steering column and started pulling wires out. "Get in the passenger seat," he ordered. "Keep your head down." Nneka ran to the other side, opened the door, and threw herself onto the cheap cloth seat. She curled into a tight ball, hugging her knees to her chest. She still had her gun gripped tightly in her right hand. The Honda's engine roared to life. Do-hyun slammed the car into gear. The tires squealed loudly on the smooth concrete as he whipped the car around and sped toward the exit ramp. The heavy metal security gate was down, blocking the exit. "Hold on," Do-hyun yelled. He didn't slow down. He hit the gas pedal. The old Honda slammed straight into the metal gate. The impact threw Nneka violently against the seatbelt. The gate bent and snapped off its hinges, scraping loudly over the roof of the car. They shot out of the garage and into the freezing New York rain. The sky was still a dark, ugly gray. The rain was coming down in sheets, washing the blood from the windshield. Do-hyun drove like a madman, weaving through the busy afternoon traffic, running red lights, and turning down narrow side streets. In the distance, Nneka could hear the loud, frantic wail of police sirens heading toward the penthouse building. They drove in silence for 20 minutes. The adrenaline slowly started to drain out of Nneka's body, leaving her feeling cold, hollow, and exhausted. She looked down at her hands. There was a smear of dark blood on her thumb. It wasn't hers. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice raspy and weak. "We are going to a safe house in Brooklyn," Do-hyun said. He kept his eyes on the road. The streetlights reflected off his sharp jawline. "It is a place Marcus does not know about. My men are already gathering there." "Marcus knows we survived," Nneka said, staring out the window at the blurry city. "He is going to hunt us. He has the money to pay for a whole army of killers." "No, he does not," Do-hyun corrected her, turning the steering wheel sharply to merge onto the bridge heading to Brooklyn. "You took all his money, remember? The men he sent today were already paid for, but by tonight, the word will spread on the street. Everyone will know Marcus Vance's bank accounts are totally empty." Do-hyun glanced over at her. The dark, dangerous smile was back on his face. "Mercenaries do not work for free, Nneka. His hit squads will pack up and go home. By tomorrow morning, Marcus will be completely alone, and that is when we hunt him.